All right, the time is 11:50. Let's redo this whole exercise using one-liners. In all of these exercises, we were doing the same approach. Create an empty list to store some values, loop through our original list. Maybe if we're doing filtering, there's an if statement involved. When we collect some item for later, we're appending it to our empty list. So we did that for all of these questions. And that I would call the long way. And you could do this the long way, continue doing it the long way, if it makes sense to you. What I'm about to share with you is a one-liner alternative. So I'll start sharing some of these with you, and then maybe you can help me finish or adapt the rest of these examples. So I'm just going back up to challenge number 1. Let's focus on that for a sec. Here in challenge number 1, we wanted to map the original values. The one-liner list comprehension looks like this. It's essentially just packaging up these same components in one line. So the rules for a list comprehension goes like this. We start and end our list comprehension with square brackets because the result will be a list, whether it has 0 matching items or many matching items or what. The result is going to be a list. So maybe we'll just say results equals. And now we're starting to kind of set up our empty list that we were doing before, except we're going to stick all of this logic now inside the list. So how this works is there's certain slots. We have a return value for each item in some existing list of items. And that at the very basic level is our list comprehension. We could also optionally use an if clause if some condition is true. So we can think about it like this. Results equals some return value for each item in our existing list of items if some condition. And the if is optional. So if we just want to do mapping, we don't use the if part of this, but if we want to also include some filtering, we will add the if. So that's the syntax, the pattern for these list comprehensions. So as you could see, we can now just start to fill in the slots. And we can refer to the way we did it the long way. So the long way, we were saying for I in my numbers, and we'll do the same thing in our list comprehension. The second slot, for I, in the third slot, my nums. This existing list, we have no choice but to put my numbers here in the third slot. We're looping through it. We have an absolute choice of what to call each item, just like in our loop. If we call each item I, now the first slot says, well, what version of that item I would you like to return? In this case, we can return I itself, or since we're doing a mapping operation, we'll say I times 100. So this is equivalent to our long way. Let me try to get both of these on the same screen. All right, so hopefully you could see that the things that we're doing are kind of the same. Like we had to loop through some existing list and then collect some transform version. We just now have access to a less verbose syntax. So return some transformed item or collect some transformed version of the number. That's like what we append. Hopefully you could see they're kind of the same here. For each item in our existing list. And so hopefully you could see that's kind of the same as this part. But we're just packaging up this thing, smushing it together in a single list. And so if we store this list comprehension in a variable called results, then our results variable will be a list like before. I just want to pause and see if there's questions. I'm going to share this in Slack as well. All right. Thoughts, questions, weird stuff going on here. If you could pick up on the pattern, then this one-liner is very helpful. So if we have a filter condition, we could optionally add that as our last set of blanks. So after we loop through the numbers for I and my numbers, we could also specify an optional if clause. So the way that we would do the second one would be something like this. So if we want to translate this long way, we could say return the number itself for each number I in our existing list of numbers that we call my numbers, but only collect an item if some condition is true, if that number is greater than 3. So here we're taking the if clause and we're just sticking it at the end, but still it goes within the square brackets of our list comprehension. So I'll share this in Slack as well. So if you could start to see how these new one-liners are very, very similar to our original approach, I hope that helps you pick up the pattern. The cool thing about list comprehensions is that we could do both mapping and filtering. So to put this into practice with our last, I guess, question number 4. I love a volunteer. How could we adapt what we have right now to match number 4? There's just one part. How can we adapt this list comprehension? Yeah. Exactly right. So we can do some mapping. We could collect or return some transform version of each item for each item in our existing list of numbers, but only if that item is greater, if it matches our filter condition. So we can combine mapping and filtering, and we're doing it all in one line. Awesome, thanks. Nice job. All right. I know that was a little quick, but that's the power of the list comprehension. How could we use a list comprehension to tackle number 5? I love a volunteer. You could think about it for a sec. In number 5, we're saying, hey, just give us the names of the team from New Haven. We could start by filling out these slots. Return value for each item in our list of items if some condition is true. Yeah, we're going to return or collect a mapped value, just the name, not the entire team itself, not the entire dictionary, but just its key of name, which happens to be a string value. Cool. I'm listening for, right, for T and teams. Okay, but only if. Perfect. Perfect. Nice. That's it. So you could see how the pattern is kind of the same. It's just that we're putting the slots all within the list comprehension. Nice. So I'll share that in Slack. And as you can imagine, I'd like to challenge you to do number 6 and 7 on your own using a list comprehension. I think it'd be good practice. And if you have questions about that, let me know. We could work on it offline. So awesome. This is how we would do. Getting into, sure, we can still do this with a list of dictionaries. It's just that each item is a dictionary, so we might have to reference its keys or something like that. All right, great. That was fun. So this was our list comprehensions exercise. It helped us practice mapping and filtering the long way. And also we learned how to do those operations in one-liner using list comprehension.